All right, everybody. I think everybody has a chance to kind of think on some questions before the presentation. You'll probably have some more after, so we're going to collect them again, but just wanted to have that in hand. So if we can have your attention back up here now. We are going to introduce from Washington, D.C., Tremayne Parquet, who is the Deputy Director of Advancement at AAUW. And if there's his whole bios in your program on page 9, but I did also just want to say that if you dealt with national and you see our great informative emails come through, a lot of them are from Tremayne. We're very lucky to have him here. He has a wealth of knowledge for us, and he's got some very exciting things he's going to talk about. So I'm going to let him do his presentation and sit down, and then I'll be moderating some questions after. So let's all enjoy our coffee and enjoy hearing from Tremayne.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
First, we know.
Hang on, Tremayne. We got to fix the sound here. You're not coming through our big speakers.
Okay.
Here. Tremayne, try talking now.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. All righty. Well, let me get started here. Thank you all. And first, I am so sorry that I couldn't join you all in person today, but I really do appreciate the opportunity to share some pretty important updates around the Five-Star Program. So my goal is to make the Five-Star Program and the new AAUW branch and affiliate annual report feel practical, approachable, and useful, especially because the context has changed in a very important way. This is no longer only a conversation about why a branch might choose to participate in the Five-Star Program. It is also a conversation about what branches, states, and other affiliates now need to do to support AAUW's reporting responsibilities and protect all AAUW affiliates. For today's presentation, I know there is special interest in a couple of things as well. Additionally, first on how the Five-Star Program reinforces AAUW's strategic plan. And second, how to explain or better explain a stronger why behind participation now that the annual report has replaced the old survey model. So today I'm going to do three things. I will briefly ground us in what Five-Star is today and how the FY26 criteria work. I will explain the shift from the former branch survey to the new AAUW branch and affiliate annual report. And I will end with some practical steps branch leaders can take back to their branches on how this can be more manageable instead of abstract. So I hope if you are a longtime branch leader, I hope this helps you translate some of the changes for your members. And if you're newer to branch leadership, I hope you leave with a clearer sense of what the next steps are. So if you remember only three things from today's presentation, I really hope they are these. First, the annual report is now an official requirement tied to AAUW's annual affiliate reporting process. That means that the report should no longer be seen as providing optional feedback to national, or that the information being shared is useful, but perhaps not a priority. Second, Five-Star still matters. It remains AAUW's clearest roadmap for what a strong mission-aligned branch could look like. It is not just about recognition. It is about practical structure, governance, programming, advocacy, communications, and advancement. Third, branches do not need to do everything at once. The goal is not perfection or trying to win every category immediately. The goal is steady progress, strategic alignment, and timely reporting. I think this slide captures the heart of the change here today. The former branch survey, as many of you may have been accustomed to over the last few years, is now the AAUW branch and affiliate annual report. That is not just a cosmetic update. The new name does reflect a pretty different and seismic change in its purpose. It also signals official reporting, not just informal feedback. So the new affiliate annual report should be seen as organization-wide reporting requirement that now reaches across branches, states, and other affiliates. And it is a requirement in part due to new IRS-related compliance expectations and AAUW's responsibilities within the group exemption structure. So the answer to a tried and true question over the last few years of, why should our branch participate in Five Star has fundamentally changed. There is still a mission reason for participating, a leadership reason, and a branch strengthening reason we still feel that are key components to Five Star. But now there is a reporting and compliance reason as well. The practical timeline also changes and matters here. The report opened last week, April 16th, and is due on June 30th. So this is not a distant change for a future year. It is a current leadership task that we are asking all AAUW leaders to plan, prepare for, and we're here to help along the way. So we do have questions about how the Five Star program interacts with AAUW's broader strategic plan. And I'm glad that this was a topic of interest here today, and because it is a great question. AAUW strategic plan is about advancing equity, gender equity through higher education, advocacy, and a stronger nationwide network. In plain terms, it is about investing in women and girls, removing barriers, and strengthening AAUW's reach and long-term sustainability. The Five Star program is one of the main ways branches turn that national strategy into local practice. Advancement supports financial strength, member engagement, and investment in the mission. Public policy and advocacy turns AAUW priorities into visible local action. Governance and sustainability keeps a branch healthy, future-focused, and aligned. Programming brings the mission to life through events and education. Communications keeps members connected to national messages, opportunities, and calls to action. So I would frame Five Star not as an extra work sitting next to the strategic plan. I would frame it as one of AAUW's clearest tools for carrying out the strategic plan at a local community branch level. So let's take a quick overall review of FY26 and the Five Star program criteria at a glance here. Hopefully some of you, or many of you that are participating, are already familiar here. So this is going to be a very quick, broad overview of just the criteria that is at stake here for FY26. In most areas, branches only need 3 qualifying actions to earn a star in that category. Programming is the exception, as that category centers on holding 4 programs aligned with AAUW strategic plan within a fiscal year. On the advancement side, branches have options such as member giving, year-over-year growth and contributions, membership retention, increasing the number of donors, making a branch gift, or recruiting someone into the legacy circle. Also keep in mind, you won't find questions on the annual report related to the advancement star. Everything related to the advancement criteria is tabulated on our end at the national office and requires no additional action or reporting from branches. In advocacy, branches can appoint a public policy chair, meet with an elected official, participate in a lobby day, hold a policy program, conduct voter education, or organize action connected to AAUW's broader advocacy network. I heard some mentions about 2-minute activists a little earlier when I was just tuning in. So all of that is kind of reinforcing and speeds into our overall advocacy and policy work. Governance and sustainability is especially important this year because it includes planning for the overall Five Star program, aligning with the strategic plan, leadership continuity, diversity and inclusion work, completing the annual report, and updating bylaws. The point I would emphasize to any leaders joining us today is flexibility. The Five Star program does not require every branch to do all the things and look the same. It gives branches, I hope, multiple ways to show strength and lean in where you have your own strengths and capacity and alignment. This slide helps bridge the old processes many of you may be familiar with as we now transition into this new annual report model. The annual branch survey that we've used over the last few years to collect data around the Five Star program has become the branch and affiliate annual report. For branches, the report still serves as the mechanism through which your work and activities in this fiscal year can count towards Five Star recognition. But it is also now supports AAUW's broader affiliate reporting process of requirements from the IRS. That distinction does matter. Branches still have a Five Star framework that they can measure their programming against. States and other affiliates now have to report too, but they will not have to address the Five Star program criteria we just discussed in the same way branches will. On the logistical side, the platform for this process has changed from SurveyMonkey to JotForm. This has some practical benefits outside of just look and feel or just a mere software change. The new form allows leaders to upload documentation, save their progress and resume later, as well as make navigation of the annual report questions and reviewing submissions a lot easier. And at the end of today's presentation, I'm actually going to walk through, some of the available resources we have on the website and do a quick run through of what that form looks like, just so you get a visual kind of familiarity with what's coming up. So leaders can also review a downloadable question list in advance, which we strongly recommend. And AAUW is also providing sample templates for the new financial reporting portions. So if I were going to give one piece of advice just based on this slide, it would be this. Don't wait until June. I think that's the biggest one. Identify who is responsible and who will take on some of this work. Gather your records early, review the questions ahead of time. Make sure you're tapped into some of our leader-facing messaging, such as Membership Matters, other focused emails, webinar recordings. The webinar from last week is now on our website, and I'll show that as well when I'm going kind of through some of the resources available on the website. And absolutely do not hesitate to email us or join us on office hours when you encounter hurdles or have any questions along the way. After the annual report webinar last week, we recognized that new financial reporting is the part that raises the most questions. So I want to try and explain some of these concepts in plain language, but bear in mind, let me start by saying I am not an accountant or a CPA, so even I am still wrangling with some of the terms and concepts that I'm discussing with you today. We are truly in this together as we have been informed about these IRS changes and have to react in real time and, pretty much build this on-ramp in real time to allow to inform our leaders and also prepare internally for the information that we'll be gathering. So I share these details, and as you likely start thinking about the questions around these areas, please know I will do my best to answer them and to the best of my understanding. But whenever in doubt, I would urge you, and I have the email here at the bottom of this slide for detailed questions to reach out to compliance@aauw.org. And I'll discuss more on that later. So in addition to the 5-star questions, which target branch activities in this fiscal year, for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025, affiliates will need to submit financial information as well. All affiliates, whether your AAUW files your branch 990 on your behalf, or if you're an affiliate that has a file that files your 990 or 990 EZ on your own, must provide a balance sheet and an income statement for the year ending in, again, June 30, 2025. So what should a balance sheet entail? A balance sheet is not just a bank statement and is not a budget. It is a snapshot of what the branch has, what it owes, and what remains as net assets. An income statement is a summary of income, expenses, and the net result for the year. And don't worry, we have provided a sample template for what a balance sheet and income statement should look like and what it includes on our 5-star program page. And I'll run through those resources here later. So continuing with balance sheet and income reporting, per our auditors and VP of Finance, we can also share that when you're kind of looking at these numbers, and again, everyone kind of does accounting a little differently, but when you're reviewing your numbers, that cash or accrual accounting is acceptable. While we have filed a 990N, that 990N does not include the financial detail we're looking for here. So separate financial statements are still needed. And one frequent question we heard on last week's webinar was around branch dues and how that might impact reporting. The answer to that is that pass-through national and state dues do not count as branch revenue and should not be factored in. The end goal here is to gather a clean, consistent financial picture of AAUW's affiliates to meet IRS requirements. This slide is where I kind of want to shift a little bit. When people hear the word compliance, they hear burden, and yes, there is some added responsibility at play here. But I will want to emphasize, and I strongly emphasize, that the annual report is the requirement, but 5-star should be treated more as a roadmap. The reporting is just the starting line and not the finish. Completing it is how branches meet the new IRS expectation and help AAUWs protect AAUW's entire affiliate network. The Five Star Program is how branches build on that foundation by choosing priorities, planning intentionally, and making mission-aligned progress. I also want to say this explicitly. Not every branch has to do everything. And if you imagine this as a race, not every branch needs to finish in first place. The goal is not perfection. You're going to hear me kind of mention this again, but I just want to really drive that point home, is that this is not about chasing perfection. It is about progress, and steady progress that fits the branch's capacity and meets the needs of their community. So when someone asks, again, why should our branch lead in? The answer is always, because this protects the entire AAUW network, it strengthens the branch, and it gives us a practical way to translate the mission into action. So you've heard me say compliance a few times today, and I just want to take a moment to provide some context. What counts as compliance is straightforward here. Complete the annual report, include the required financial documentation, submit by the deadline. That's it. If something is missing, support and follow-up are part of the process, and I'll be sharing a little bit of a timeline for what that looks like as well. In other words, leaders should be asking questions early, make full use of existing resources now and on the Five Star webpage, and address problems and questions before they become bigger than they need to be. At the same time, it is important not to minimize the stakes. Unresolved noncompliance can ultimately lead to disaffiliation and can create risk for the overall group exemption structure. But again, we're going to do what we can to coordinate with branch and state leaders to work together and make sure that, whenever you're encountering challenges or you need to flesh out our resources to be responsive to new questions that are coming in from leaders, that we are here to help everyone get across that finish line. This next slide gives you some more plain language, again, to some of the answers that came up in discussion from last week's webinar. If someone does ask, what is an asset? I would say an asset is anything that the branch owns or controls that has value and can support the branch's work. In practical terms, that usually means money in checking or savings, reserve funds, CDs, investments, money owed to the branch, or equipment the branch owns. If someone asks whether a balance sheet is the same as the bank statement or a budget, again, I touched on this a little earlier. The answer to that is no. A balance sheet is a summary snapshot of assets, liabilities, and net assets. If someone asks whether cash or accrual accounting is acceptable, again, that answer to that is yes, either are acceptable. And if someone asks if AAUW filed our 990N, as 95% of branches do we still need to submit financials? And the answer to that is yes, because the 990N does not contain the required financial detail we're looking for here. Everyone's situation can look different. And as I kind of touched on before, everyone's kind of accounting can be different as well. So if your financial picture looks a little, askew, or you just want some more consultants and guidance, again, I want to echo and stress compliance.aauw.org is the email address, and it will be the chief contact point for those types of more granular IRS questions that are more specific from a branch to branch, case to case basis. And we have a team dedicated to addressing those types of inquiries, including a lot of our finance colleagues. So again, we will have and be able to bring that expertise to bear when you do have any specific or particular items that you do want to have addressed. So as I kind of wrap up more of the broader points of the presentation, I'd like to propose just a simple action list, because most leaders kind of leave a presentation like this asking, all right, what do we actually do now? So the first is identify the person or persons or a team to coordinate the annual report with contingency backup plans in case you do need someone to step in. Second, gather the basic records now. Your EIN, filing confirmation, balance sheet, income statement, and a sample summary of branch activities. Third, decide which five-star areas make the most sense for your branch this year. Again, given what programming you've already done as we're at the tail end of the fiscal year, what work that you did this year dovetails with any of the five-star criteria, and then make sure you're including that and providing that when you're filling out the annual report. Fourth, use the tools AAUW is putting on the website. We have the Strategic Plan Leader Toolkit. Obviously, membership matters for our leaders. That we have webinar materials online, and on the five-star page in and of itself will be the resource hub for everything and all things five-star. And those should not sit untouched. These are, and we hope they will become integral working tools. Fifth, review the branch basics that connect directly to 5-star and good governance, succession planning, bylaws updates, communication roles, leader email subscriptions. And finally, remind leaders that progress, again, beats perfection. Branches that prepare steadily will have a much better experience of this than branches that wait and panic. So as we look not only just for the next 60 days, but beyond, I find this slide is helpful because it shows that the annual report is not just a form to submit. It is part of a larger annual process. The first phase, the one we're in now, is April 16th through June 30th. That is the main reporting window. During this time, branches and affiliates should be, attending trainings, such as the one you're attending today, review resources, gather your EIN, filing confirmation, financials, etc., and complete the annual report in JOT form with all the required documentation by the deadline. July through December is the follow-up phase. This is if something needs clarification or correction, that support window matters. This is the window where if we find any documents or discrepancies, we will reach out to your branch or affiliate to work with and assist you in filling those gaps. This is why early questions and steady preparation will really pay off. This is also the window where you will have the FY27 criteria and should be integrating that into your work and processes for the rest of the fiscal year as well, where appropriate. And January 2027 is our deadline. It is the national milestone and is when AAUW nationally submits the complete affiliate roster to the IRS, helping protect the group exemption to the complete AAUW network. And finally, this timeline is helpful because it serves as a reminder for everyone that this is not going to be a one-day task. This is an evolution, a process. There's preparation, submission, a follow-up window, and then the national reporting step that closes the loop on one cycle, but is the beginning of another. So we began with some takeaways, and I'd like to leave you with some takeaways. If you need a simple debrief to bring back to your board or branch members that couldn't join us today about the 5-star program and the branch annual report, I hope there are these. First, the annual report is now required and tied to AAUW's annual affiliate reporting process. 5-star is still the best roadmap AAUW has for translating the strategic plan into local branch action. Third, that the changes to this process is about protecting the entire AAUW network, while the 5-star program is still about strengthening affiliates, not just checking a box. And fourth, branches do not have to do all criteria at once. I keep reiterating this because, unfortunately, over the years, I certainly have heard that, we won't get all 5 stars, so what is the point? And really, the goal is not about achieving all 5 stars. It's about, again, that steady mission-aligned progress. If you could help branch leaders kind of leave with these 4 ideas, I think will help reduce some anxiety around the report and increase clarity. So I do have a slide about resources, but I'm actually going to stop here and actually show you what those resources look like. So give me one moment, and I'm going to share my screen once again. This time, however, with our homepage. So this is obviously the main AAUW website. When you're trying to find anything and everything related to 5-star, you can do a couple things. You can obviously search for the 5-star program, but if you're just kind of clicking through and you just want to kind of navigate this freely, you can always click on the membership at the top here and 5-star program as well. So you can either search for 5-star or within 2 clicks, you can be on the 5-star program page. And here is where you'll have, again, that this is the main access to the annual report here. This is where you will click when you want to actually submit questions. But before you do that, again, I do strongly urge and recommend anyone download the list of questions first. Take that time to kind of sit with your team or, group that is going to be helping fulfill this process. To do that in advance, because I think it will be a lot of help, even though the JOT form and the new form that we're using does allow you to save and continue and go back in and revise and edit. Again, I do think it's just worthwhile to do this step in advance. We do have the sample balance sheet and income statement here. So again, if you have documentation that you've been using for your accounting over the years, if make sure it aligns with what is included in these sheets, because that is what is required or necessary for the IRS reporting. And we also have some talking points as well, just in case, you do have, you are sharing this back with your branch, your notable members are present here today, and you do want to take back, this information to the branch outside of the takeaways and points I've shared today. We also have some talking points here as well that you can share. And as we scroll past the FY26 criteria, I definitely want to highlight this here. This is the webinar that we held last week. Some of the information here will be kind of duplicative, but obviously it's great to kind of reinforce some concepts, but it also does go into certain areas that I didn't kind of touch on today. We did have the benefit of having our auditors on the call last week, and they were able to kind of delve more into the history of what why the IRS is doing this now. What does this look like? So there's a little bit of history there as well. So again, I think it would just behoove everyone to kind of take a look and listen to that webinar from last week as well. And also, I wanted to show everyone what the form actually looks like. So this is I'm in the preview form here, but this is what the beginning of the affiliate annual report will look like. And you do have introductory questions, and then there will be questions. There's a section for each section of the 5-star program if you're answering as a branch, but if you're submitting as a state, the process is super streamlined. So you only need to provide your state name, and then you go straight to submitting your financial documentation. Only branches will need to necessarily submit all the other criteria, questions correlated to the existing 5-star criteria before they then also get to this subsection to upload their documentation. And I also want to share that with you here. So this is just an example of what the branch form looks like, where, again, kind of showing that here at the bottom, you can save and continue later. And I already pre-filled some questions in here, so you didn't have to see me kind of go through and do a mock setup of all the questions. But this is also kind of showing you, again, how a little friendlier this form is, where, again, you can kind of jump around as you are kind of submitting. It's like, oh, did I submit this question? Or, oh, let me go back and, did I answer this correctly? And again, saving and continuing certainly helps be able to like say, oh, okay, although it's, 31 questions and, 6 of them are optional, but you want to just come back a little bit later. You don't have the time to, fully fill that out. The form does allow you to come back in and save later. And then at the end here, we also have the submission form where you can I'll click through these optional questions. And again, you get to the same IRS documentation here as a branch. So I just kind of wanted to give a quick overview of what the form looks like. Again, the look and feel, I think, is an improvement over what we've had in years past. And I think there's also improvements in the fact that you are able to kind of review before you submit. You can save and continue, and then you can skip around and jump around without, hopefully being it too clunky when you do resume, and you can kind of jump back in, on questions, review things, and just overall, you have a little bit more control and flexibility with what the form does and how you interact with it, as opposed to what we've had previously. So I am going to pause there. I think I kind of went through a little quicker than I had originally planned, but hopefully that does leave us a little bit more time for some questions if you have them, but I'd be happy to take them at this point.
Sorry, I'm getting us all back connected, both me to the group and you as well. Here's Tremayne. So we have some questions rolling in right now, but I probably did get through your presentation, and I'm sure there'll be more related specifically to that. One is, and you touched on this a little bit, I think, to underline it. If a branch already does its own IRS reporting, why must it meet these AAUW requirements? So if you just want to kind of underline that and speak to that.
Can you repeat that question? I'm having a bit of trouble.
Yeah, is it just that of Wyatt, or I just want to make sure that tech-wise we're taking care of it? Or did I just talk too fast, which happens too?
I think, yeah, if you talk more into the mic, I think I can.
Okay, let's do that.
Perfect,
Sorry,
perfect.
we're managing 3 sound systems here, so it's not on you. So we had a question here, and you kind of touched on it, so if you don't mind kind of underlining it. If a branch does its own IRS reporting, why must it meet these AAUW requirements?
So again, if you are acting as an AAUW affiliate, this is just it is just a requirement. If you're acting under any sort of auspice under the AAUW umbrella, it is just a requirement that we, as a national entity, and the one that feeds into all these all the affiliates feed into, has to do national based reporting on and accounting for all of our affiliates. So that is just part of the IRS mandate here. So again, yes, while you are doing your own filing, we do need to have that information required as stipulated in the annual report. But yeah, it's just based on the fact that we are the national entity, and we also have obligations to report on our affiliates to the IRS.
And for those who are longtime members, this IRS filing has been a recurring issue that we definitely want to keep an eye on over the years, because we are an organization that we want to be in compliance and we don't want to be a target. So please, I'm being more blunt than Tremayne is, but please follow these rules. This isn't something arbitrary that we're AAUW created just to change forms again. We've seen in the past, organizations get targeted by the IRS during political times, so please. So we have a couple other questions about this specifically. I've had a lot of questions about the foundation, so if everybody gives me a moment to kind of consolidate them, I'll do that, but in the meantime, I'll start with one though, that is there an option on the job form for a 5013 foundation that is an affiliate?
No, this is a great question, and one that we are kind of establishing a separate workflow. So right now there's just the state and branch flow in the JOT form, but we are going to be adding a flow for our other like C3 related affiliates or sub-organizations that a branch might have. So that isn't to come. So this is why, paying attention to membership matters and leader communications is going to be pretty important. I think we're going to have something in place very soon. It's likely going to follow a similar model to the state one, where it's just literally going to be identifying who your the name, and then just being able to upload the form. So you're not going to have to do all the questions as for other affiliate related organizations or C3s that a branch might have, but you still will be required to submit on that behalf. But again, that flow is not on the form yet, but it will be added, and when it is, we are going to certainly announce that. So just kind of stay tuned. State and branches reporting for right now, but other affiliates absolutely are going to be accounted for here, and that's going to be to come.
So that's I'm just gonna underline that for everybody. We're also recording this so that members who couldn't be in attendance can also have access to this information, but to strong underline that if you have a foundation, you will be required to file it as well. So another question here is, if filing financial info is for fiscal year ending 6/30/2025, what year are we answering the program advocacy for fiscal year 6/30/25 or 6/30/26?
Yes, unfortunately, the IRS requirements and the need to try to kind of integrate these into one process, because we thought about doing this as two separate collection methods to collect 5-star information separately, and 5-star yes is for fiscal year 26, so that's the year ending in June 30, 26, and then the financial information separately, and that is for June 30, 2025. But yeah, so we did think about separating that, but ultimately we didn't want to kind of put branches through multiple collection methods. And so we tried to compile and consolidate them as one. But yes, it does kind of create a little bit of a headache there. And I do apologize for that, but it is kind of the nature of things. But yes, so the 5-star program, so for the bulk of those branch questions you're going to be answering, the 5-star program related ones, those are for the work of this current fiscal year ending in June 30, 2026. But that last financial reporting portion, just that piece, is for June 30, 2025, the previous fiscal year.
So we'll just kind of all help to reemphasize that as we talk to our fellow members and other branches. Is fiscal year is going to be a year behind. The 5-star is what we want currently, or within your previous year, calendar year. So then that also, our last question on that was also, so just to underline it again, the affiliate does need to do both sets of financial records if they have both the 501c3 and the, or 501c3 or 4 and have a foundation too. So if there's two separate entities within one branch, you're also going to have to fill out the two different forms, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So not only did you zip through your answer or your presentation really well, you've zipped through our answers very well. For those whose questions I summarized or anything, was that all crystal clear? We're gonna move into some non-financial related things. Does anybody have any final question, or I should say final, if something else pops up by all means, but do we have any other questions related to reporting? Go ahead. Sure.
Our branch has money in a community foundation, and that's where we give our scholarships out of. We don't, it's part of the community foundation and our name is under it. Is that what you're talking about as far as foundation money? No.
So I see people shake their head no, and I think that is the answer, but I'll let Tremayne address it as well. So the question was, their branch, and several branches I know do this too, have their money in the community foundation, and that's where they draw their money for their scholarships every year. And so does that need to be reported or how does that need to be accounted for? Or does it not?
So it likely does need to be reported, but again, some of that support can be very individual and can look different, from case to case and instance to instance. So depending on if you have questions, again, this is where I would defer to my compliance at AAUW.org inbox. My colleagues on the finance team can definitely kind of parse out for you, if you have an instance that might maybe fall outside of the bounds of this exercise, but by and large, yes, you're going to have to report on them. But again, things can look very different and unique for your specific case. So when and ever in doubt, certainly reach out to compliance at AAUW.org, share kind of the full kind of history and case that you have with your branch. And I think we can provide you with the guidance you need to make sure that you're reporting fully and maybe saving you some work, on some things, but likely, yes, you're going to have to report on them.
Yeah, and I would just, again, underlining what Tremayne just said, the compliance at AAUW.org is a great resource. I think, we have a lot of questions there about foundations and, a few of our branches our affiliates have that. But the main part of this is that you have your balance sheet portion, right? And so for my branch, I know the foundation, community foundation money that we have invested, is part of our balance sheet. It's not a separate entity from our branch's 501c3 status. So again, there will be ability through compliance and other parts of AAUW to clarify that, but also we did have a lot of conversation about foundation, but a lot of this just goes back to the basic reporting documents that our branch will just have to do that's covered on your balance sheet and other places. So another question?
Can we see the template of what it looks like, the reporting template for?
Sure.
It's on the website.
So Tremayne, it's on the website, but I don't know if you have it available. I don't want you to go digging around, but do you have the template available just to show real quick?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, hold on one moment and we'll have them share screens again, just so you all can see the template and see just a preview of what it looks like. We're not gonna have to go through it with us step by step, but just.
Oh, no, but yes, absolutely. So as we scroll back up on our lovely 5-star page, I will open our.
So this is just letting you know that we're, Tremayne is navigating right now. This is the 5-star page within the AAUW.org site.
And so this is actually a good thing. So I'm actually glad someone asked to kind of look at this, because for some that may not be super Excel, spreadsheet savvy, this one file does encapsulate both the balance and the income statement. So this is the sample balance sheet that has been provided. This does have everything.
We're not sharing that right now. Sorry, it didn't come up. I don't know if I opened it in front screen or.
I'm going to kind of enlarge this a little bit as well. But so this is the app. This is what has been vetted by not only our auditors, our VP of Finance, as the minimum requirements that you need to provide for your balance sheet. And again, there's 2 tabs in this single file. So we have the balance sheet and the income statement. Here, I'll enlarge that as well a little bit. But these are the types of things that are going to be required for both the balance and the income statement.
We can't see the sheet right now. We're just still seeing the page.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
We're not seeing the sheet right now. We're still just seeing the web page. Sorry about that. We spread it on you, now we're making you do tech work. Sorry about that.
Weird. But are you seeing this okay?
Now we're seeing it, yes. thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So again, so this spreadsheet again shows the, and again, this is for the income statement and for the balance sheet, which you can toggle through on this bottom pane here, but it has both tabs. This again has been vetted by our VP of Finance and our auditors as this is what you need to provide for these statements. So again, and if you have questions about how you might derive some of these figures, again, that is where compliance at AAUW.org will come into play. Again, our finance team will be available to kind of help you walk you through as best we can the process so that you can plug in the appropriate numbers here and then be able to submit this, for your annual report.
Well, thank you for that. And again, for everybody, we are following, that was at the 5 Star Program part of the website, and it is a link for somebody to click through to look at more detail. And again, if you have questions, that's an email to compliance. We have another question, Nicole? Yes, and this is about the reporting.
Goes from July 1 to December.
Of this previous year, yes. Sorry, the question was just about the 5 Star reporting dates. So, which, yeah, so they're, no, the financial follows the same path as the year before though. So, we're asking you to do everything that's kind of current for the 5 Star. Current as an ending now, that is the 5 Star reporting. The financial is July 1 through June 30th of 2025. So we're a year behind on that, so that all financial reporting documents are available to do the filing.
Yes.
Yes, 24-25, yes, because, yep. And I believe you probably could tell I was saying summarizing Tremayne, so interrupt, but sometimes I was wrong, but that's the gist, is that essentially the 5 Star will be July 1 through June 30, 25, 26. The financial reporting will be July 1 through June 30, 24, 25. So that's that differential that Tremayne was talking about earlier in his presentation.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, do we have other questions about reporting and 5 Star? I've got a couple of other questions for you, Tremayne, but they're.
Nope, I'm here for them.
Leah, go ahead. So the question was, we just had a book sale. Do we have to include our booked inventory as an asset?
So if you just had it, I think that's activity for this fiscal year, not for the last fiscal year.
Yeah, so we have to include the last year on the balance statement. Is that the kind of the gist of it?
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
We have to repeat, we have to do it for the last year because it'd be part of the balance statement, not this year's current inventory because the balance statement is for the previous year.
Yes, correct.
So so you will, but you have to do it for last year's for the current reporting.
Because
this is going to be something to take up with compliance. I'm not going to put this on Tremayne. I don't blame you for having the question.
book sales, we probably never counted how many books we
Right.
received.
So I think the question, and Tremayne, maybe you can generally address this, and it's totally fine if you say, please email compliance. But the question essentially is, well, if it's gonna be based on last year's books, inventory and sales, because that's where the balance sheet would be, a lot of us have never done that inventory before. Is that okay, or how are we supposed to account for that? Going forward, everyone will know now to mark it down, but how will they account for that looking back as we start to fill out these forms?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a challenge, as I mentioned. Everybody has kind of done their accounting very differently, potentially over the years, and obviously, finance chairs change, et cetera, et cetera. So this is obviously going to be a learning process for a lot of us here as we try to kind of, right size things and kind of get things now, a little bit more ship shape now that we have to kind of report all of this now officially on an annual basis to the IRS. So again, this is where I would definitely, urge you to reach out to compliance@aauw.org, because they will be able to kind of help you, at least walk you through a little bit of, or give you that kind of advice and insight as to how you might best approach this if these are things that, may not have done to the letter, previously. And, and that will help you, hopefully be able to best figure that out. And again, even if you can't reconcile that right away, we do have an extensive follow-up period where we're going to be following up with every branch that might have, questions, issues, or, oddities, with whatever they submitted. And again, that is something we're not going to try and leave any branch behind here. Anyone that is, kind of doing this process in good faith, and trying to do everything they can to, meet the need, meet the moment, we're going to certainly try and help you in that and all of that. So compliance@aauw.org will definitely be able to help you with some of the more particular questions. But yeah, we've built in so much follow-up and build time that, there will have time to hopefully address all these, any issues that come up.
Thank you for that, Tremayne. And everybody in the room, please, I know we're talking about some stuff that generates discussion. We have a break coming up after this. We have Tremayne on an audio feed that's kind of not the best, and we're trying to answer the questions that are being asked. So can we all kind of keep it at a minimum for now and listen to the answers that are being given? Some of it is, as Tremayne just said, look, we don't have all the answers right now. We've got a period after the filing that we're going to follow up with everybody. There's going to be some opportunities beforehand for people to reach out through compliance. If a lot of questions are generated, there probably will be other ways that we're going to be able to ask ahead of time as well. They've been responsive in the past about adding webinars or Q&As, there's office hours. So we're going to have that opportunity. Tremayne is not compliant, so we're not going to hold him hard and fast to this. I'm also going to tell everybody honestly, as somebody who works in local government and has been in AAUW for a long time, there are going to be some things that we're going to have to suss out on our own, that as an organization that's legally liable, AAUW is not going to be able to give you 100% firm answer, because this is what we're going through. They're going to get a lot of information for you. They're going to help you vet a lot of things. Some of this is a new process, and we're going to have a new process, and that's what it's going to be. So we're all going to work through this process together going forward. We're kind of lucky. This is just a whole thing got rolled out about a week ago of all the info. We've got Tremayne here to answer some of the questions. We're getting some guidance here along the way. This isn't the end. This isn't the last chance we're going to have to ask or get answers. So I don't want people thinking that if they walk away from here and don't have their exact answer, that National isn't going to be there to help them, or that you're going to be left high and dry. Plus, we do have our break here in a couple minutes for us to talk amongst ourselves too. So I just wanted to kind of remind everybody of that before we get a little too into our concerns about this. They're rightful, they're justified, they're certainly that we're going to all be talking in the near future, but we need to also give us a little space here to be digesting things. I see one more hand up. So the question is, and I think Tremayne started to address that, is are books supposed to be considered an asset? Essentially, if you have a lot, they will, it sounds like, in the future. How that gets accounted for in the future and what that looks like will be sussed out a little over the next couple of months, and that's certainly a question that we can submit. And this question was asked here in open forum, so maybe knowing that a lot of our branches do book sales, we will try to include that in some future newsletter information as well, so everybody gets that answer. So stay tuned on that. All right, back here and then up here.
Even though our affiliate does not have taxes, still have to do all this reporting.
Yes.
Yes, you have to do those. Sorry, Tremayne, I can answer this one without repeating it. So yes, as Tremayne said, even if you file on your own, you do have to fill this out. This is part of our organizational accountability to the IRS.
Yes.
Thank you. Yep. Go ahead.
As a finance person, my background, I don't believe that you have to include books as assets if you don't hold them at the end of the fiscal year. So I believe that only our branches, like the one in Battle Creek that has a bookstore, they will have an asset. But those of us who collect books and sell books and get rid of the rest of the books will not.
Okay, so we have a little, I see Tremayne, I think you caught a little of that there, that if you're not holding on to the books, it's probably not going to have to count against you as an asset. We take them, we sell them, we take them all and donate them after. If you run a sale or you have a continuous inventory, that might be different. Again, we'll suss that out over the next couple of months with AAW, but these are great insights that we're getting here too. So I have a couple of other questions I asked that aren't about accounting, and I want to try to get to them in the next couple of minutes that we have. Does anybody have the final one that's burning right now that is very basic and immediate? Okay. Seeing none, I will now ask you a couple quick questions, and let me check my time. Got about 10 minutes here, so I got probably 3 questions, so timing accordingly. It's not rapid fire, but it's not hopefully looking for super long answers. So one that is kind of, 2 that were kind of combined, similar, are is there a plan for improving the AAW website to make it more user friendly? / is there a chance of a different membership renewal system that are, because we feel a lot of complaints or confusion locally at branch level. So kind of speaking on those 2 things of the website and also how we renew our dues and the confusion that can sometimes go along with that. If you have any insights or anything you'd like to share about those.
So the website, yes, that is a very big, and we know it's a pain point for many members and leaders. That is something that is on our books as a team, and as as an organization and as individual teams within the organization here at National. We are building out our work plans for the next fiscal year, and we do have a new comms director in place. That comms director is kind of still building up a team of folks that can help with managing the website. We actually just brought someone on board, I think, actually just 2 weeks ago, that is now helping with the website more directly. Before we were kind of having somebody wearing like almost 3 or 4 different hats, kind of juggling all the things. But as we now our new comms director is bolstering their team, I think everyone is kind of hoping that we can make some improvements. But again, there's improvements to the search fields as well. There's just, there is certainly room for improvement, and there's definitely a lot of opportunities to make those improvements to the website. So that, yes, that is on the roadmap. I can't give you an exact estimate as to when some of those improvements will be identified and implemented, but I do know that for a fact the website and the pain points of kind of finding things on the website is front and center for our comms team going into the next fiscal year. So I would expect improvements over the next coming months. What that might look like and how that rollout might look on the external side might be a little different, but I do know for a fact that it is something we're working on.
Just to follow up on that really quick, the comms team knew, which is great to hear that they've recruited some new people for some help there. But the comms team, is that also on the list to look at the actual membership renewal part of the site too? It's Step to Stern, or is that a separate entity that?
So yeah, that's a separate team. That would be more of our IT team, and my own team, as well as we help with administer and helping leaders deal with the membership renewal process. So I would love to know some of the pain points we're having there. We're kind of at a decent rhythm where the community hub obviously had some growing pains in its initial steps, but we're in a better spot with it now. But if there are different improvements that we need to make to it, I think we are certainly open to that feedback. If you want to actually send it my way, I would love to forward that along to the team, and I can my email I can drop in the chat, or say out loud. It's a PARQUETT@AAUW.org. I would love to kind of get that feedback so I can share it with my team that is handling some of the membership stuff. And then, of course, we can pass it along to our IT team if there's improvements that need to be made to the community hub itself in terms of dues processing. But yeah, I would love to kind of get that feedback more in detail so I can take that back to IT and my team so we can see, what we can better do there.
All right, so thank you, Tremayne, and to everybody out there. It's, you've got your program in front of you. For the people who are watching later, it's Tremayne's last name at AAUW.org. So Parquet at AAUW.org. And he is happy to take your specific pain points so they can make it better. So that is very welcome. Thank you for that. Katie, did you have another question related to this?
Please promise us that before you start deploying new software, you put it through some rigorous testing and have your IT team develop a test plan.
All right. So if you didn't hear that, Katie, our state secretary, who comes from the IT world for her career, says, could you all please reassure us or create a system where there will be an IT test before, rigorous testing before deployment. I think the thought is that maybe there and a test plan, so that some debugging can happen a little bit more before it goes public. Is that, what's the process for that? We roll out new websites or new IT materials for pre-testing, and what kind of rigorous testing does it go through?
So there's a couple things. So the website is kind of different than our internal database that is kind of nests behind the website, and that's where the community hub kind of resides. So the website maintenance is a little different. But in terms of overall testing, we do work with our CRM is Nimble. Nimble is a Salesforce-based platform. We do work with our IT team and we have developers on the Nimble side that actually help us do some of the testing and development of new items before it is debuted on the actual community hub itself. So they have their own rigorous testing. We then have our own IT team that does the testing. And then when they are doing the testing, they then share it with us on the advancement team. So we're dealing with our, the folks that are interfacing and helping leaders and members, do things like dues, give, renew, everything, so there's internal testing after a lot of kind of vendor-based testing as well. So it's kind of, and it depends also on what the actual workflow we're trying to implement there, or what program or project we're trying to implement. But usually there's internal testing on the developer side, IT testing on the AAUW side, and then further testing on like my team or anyone that deals with membership before something is ultimately delivered. So there's at least 2 to 3 levels of testing before something, and triage before something gets pushed into actual production, or for the general end user, member, etc.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question here has to do with the emails we get and kind of calendaring in. So the question is, do you have a solicitation and communication calendar that we can, and it says, can we access that to align so as not to overwhelm and confuse members? And so this is essentially addressing that sometimes branches and state, and I would state in this too, is where the information would help to come from, but national as well. Do we have an ability to see a calendar, or is there any kind of cadence we can count on so that we're not all sending members emails on the same day?
So
And then for a week.
that is a fantastic question. I actually really like that question. I don't know why we haven't done that before. We have an event calendar. That is something that is on our on the community hub. But you're absolutely right. In terms of that is something we can totally help in our comms team. Like I said, is a growing team. I think they have a couple more bodies on that team that might be able to lean in and maybe be able to share that at a leadership level for sure, with communication officers, newsletter editors, et cetera, being able to coordinate your own messaging so that we're not all kind of butting heads on the same day. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. I'm happy to take that back to the team to see what can we develop, because we do have an internal communications calendar, so I imagine we can just kind of dress that up a little bit, for, public eyes, and potentially be able to kind of share that so that, again, as leaders, you can then now coordinate and see, okay, well, we don't all have to send something, on the same day or something like that. But yeah, I'm happy to take that back because it just totally makes sense. I don't even know why we haven't done that before, but no, that's great feedback, and I really appreciate it.
Gold star question there, and somebody in my local, when I wear my local government hat, I always like to say that it's such a good idea. It's a great idea when somebody says that and you think, boy, we were really dumb not to have done that before. So question and the suggestion, I think we're all there, and I think AAUW Michigan Board can contribute to that as well, as we send communications out and try to schedule it in a way as much as possible, and that would be something we'd be looking at too. So thank you for taking that back to the new communications team. The final question I have in front of me here, and I know we're getting up on time too, but it's kind of simple. This was brought up, and I think our secretaries, our state secretary kind of hosts periodic conversations with the other ones, with other secretaries around the state. And one of the questions that they've been discussing is, how many years should official records be kept? This is minutes, board minutes, annual meetings, financials, and newsletters. And John, can you tell us if there's any work being done to define that?
This is another good question. We do have a record retention policy. Our archivist now kind of resides on the advancement team now. So we do have direct access to her expertise on this, but it's usually a 7-year retention policy. But there is a retention policy as well on our website. If it's not searchable, I will certainly try to connect you with it, and I'm happy to even give you Jessica's, email information, because she would love to talk, and she loves talking with branches about, the various treasures they often have and send to us. But it's usually a 7-year retention policy. That's even something that we adhere to at the national office as well in terms of our what we retain. There are certain things that we still do archive, that's outside of that range, obviously, but for by and large, for your day-to-day stuff, it's usually going to be 7 years. But if you search our website, there should be a retention policy, and if not, again, I've shared my email. Feel free to reach out to me, and I can put you in contact with our archivist, who can kind of, even kind of more on a granular, specific level, kind of share with her, what kind of items you are wanting to retain, and she could definitely walk you through it. But by and large, and the average is usually 7 years.
Fantastic. Well, that I think puts us right at 10:30. So use it through the presentation, which I really good spot. I'll try to pretend the mic so you can hear the round of applause for you. Really appreciate
Thank you so much.
This morning, Tremayne. You answered a lot of really great questions for us. I think it gives us some things to chew on and talk about on our break coming up here, and also just the appreciation of getting some more information from National, both on what's expected out of us. I'm personally really pleased to hear that the comms team's added a couple of people now, and that you all are kind of fine tuning some more of that. So we appreciate the connection this morning, and thank you for your time, and thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
You do the same. Thank you all so much for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, stay tuned. Membership Matters, emails from us, as well as the website, and always the 5-star page. We're going to be constantly updating that. I even have a couple questions that have come up today that I think we need to add to our FAQs. So we need to kind of bolster that as well. So again, thank you all so much. I really appreciate the time today.
That added to the FAQs. That's how they go. So thank you for that. So thank you, Tremayne.